Welcome to the Darkside Twisted List, the tests of the Salem witch trials. We're going to look at 10 tests used during the Salem witch trials to determine innocence or guilt. Number 10, witch cake. In this voodoo-inspired test, the ingredients of said cake were rye meal and urine from the girls said to be inflicted by the witch's evil incantations. The test had the dogs eat this cake, after which the alleged witch should scream out in pain. For in the process of her cursing the victims, she sent invisible particles of herself, the embodiment of pure evil, that is, which would show up in the urine. The cake then was effectively a voodoo doll of herself in a way. Number 9. Spectral evidence. This type of evidence is based on claims by accusers that they would see the individual accused of witchcraft in dreams or visions doing the devil's bidding. The argument against this was that the devil could take any shape, while the counter-argument was that the devil could not inhabit an individual's body without their permission. This form of evidence was somehow enough to convict several accused during the time it was deemed plausible. When it was later thrown out, the conviction rate declined severely and hastened the trial's conclusions. Number 8. Eyewitness testimonials. Some witnesses would confess to actually seeing the alleged witches practicing their black magic, which was enough to tattoo guilt all over them. Of course, there was nothing to stop accusers from making up stories just to see people they disliked or deemed strange taken away. Many accusations stemmed from the belief that a death or illness had been caused by witchcraft, which upon filing with the magistrate had long been deemed credible would lead to an arrest on the charge of affliction with witchcraft or entering a covenant with the devil. Number 7. Witch's teat. If you've ever heard the expression cold as a witch's teat, now you know the origin. The aforementioned teat corresponded to any kind of mole or unusual skin blemish which all witches, and frankly most humans, are characterized to have. The test was that this teat would be pricked with a needle, and if the recipient didn't bleed or feel it, then surely there was a witch in our midst. Oftentimes, however, needles would be purposely blunted so it would be easier to demonstrate just how cold and unfeeling the teat really is. Number 6. Artifacts. Sought after in the accused home were any artifacts corresponding to witchcraft that could be used as evidence for condemnation. These included poppets, or a voodoo doll of sorts, through which spells would be cast, cauldrons full of ointments, and books on palm reading and horoscopes, also having flying broomsticks, talking black cats, and pointy hats would be instant red flags. Number 5. The Lord's Prayer Test. This was literally a test of faith. The accused would be made to recite the Lord's Prayer without error. This included any stumbling, stammering, or outright spasming. As elocution is a painstaking art, it seems that any average human would slip up. But under God's eyes, mistakes are unacceptable. As far as fits go, try forcing someone who may be mentally retarded or hysterical or hallucinating from LSD fungus covered in rye bread, another suspect of these ubiquitous fits, to read from the Bible with absolute level-headedness. Number 4. The touch test. This test is all about the performance. If an afflicted person throwing fits and the like suddenly becomes calm after the accused places their hand on him or her, then the toucher is most certainly a witch. This is said to be because all of the venom and assorted evil toxins that originally addled the inflicted soul have returned to their evil host. Number 3, forced confession by dunking. Those who didn't admit to being a witch and under heavy suspicion were usually induced to confess by way of torture. One method was dunking, in which the accused would be held under water repeatedly until they were successfully broken down. This is also an effective means of brainwashing someone into believing a lie, anything to make the inhumanity cease. Number 2, pressing. Another means of torture designed to make the accuser talk, but made it impossible for them to talk, much less breathe. Called pressing, the subject is placed beneath heavy stones, meant to literally crush you into submission. One such recipient endured this very treatment, an 80-year-old man named Giles Corey, accused of being a warlock. And yes, men were accused as well. He refused to give a plea each of the several times he was asked, and was ultimately crushed to death by the stones, which, as it turned out, were more likely to speak than he was. And last but not least was bound submersion. There was no favorable result in this test. Essentially, the alleged witch would be bound at the hands and feet with heavy rocks attached and thrown into a body of water. If the body floated to the surface, that was proof, along some kind of whimsical lines, that the accused was indeed a witch, at which point they'd execute her by some other means. If she sank to the bottom and inevitably drowned, she was innocent. Given that none of these girls had received any proper Navy SEAL training, inhale, hold your breath, don't panic, about 100% of them drowned, with apathetic standers-by shrugging it off, thinking, oh well, now we know. So that's been our Darkside Twisted list for this week. Look for more twisted lists as the week goes by, and thank you for joining us on the Dark Side.